Welcome to Engage in Work, Module 4, Lesson 23. Read the objective out loud while I read it. I can compare the size of the product to the size of the factor. So we're going to be doing the same thing that we did in Lesson 22, but there's a twist. Of course there's a twist. So instead of using scaling as a factor, now what do we know? A fraction is also a what? A decimal. So instead of scaling to a fraction, we're going to be turning those fractions into decimals. But before we get started, let's start with a little fluency. Compare the size of a product to the size of one factor. Then you're going to do this. This kind of preps you. This right here is a review of lesson 21. Here is preparing you for today. Now, using the symbols less than, greater than, or equal to, I want you to use those to fill in those blanks. So this is 1 to 9 tenths to 95 hundredths to 994 thousandths. Okay, on the back, we are going to write fractions as decimals. So we're practicing, right? We're practicing going to fractions to decimals. And that's what our big idea for this lesson is going to be today. So this right here is a review of lesson, I think 20 and 21. So you should be able to do this. So this is fluency. This is review. Then we'll come back together and look at the application problem. Okay? So go ahead and get started. Come back to check your work. Okay, so let's review. 1 is equal to 6 over 6. 9 times 1/2 is the scaling factor, right? So if I multiply by half, it's going to be, our product is going to be less than 9, right? Our product is going to be less than 9. So we're comparing. We know when we multiply 9 times 1/2, is our number is going to be smaller than 9. 9 times 2 over 2 is going to give us 9. 3 over 3 is times 7 is going to be equal to 7, because really that's equivalent to 1, right? Then we have 3/4 times 6. So if we're multiplying by a number less than 1, our number is going to end up being less than 6, right? 3/2 times 6 is going to end up being greater than 6, because our scaling factor is greater than 1. You could have just chosen 3 too, but then I have 4/5 times 8 is going to give us a number less than 8, because it's 4/5, it's less than 1, right? Then let's compare our decimals. So 1 is greater than 0.9 because it's 9 tenths, it's not quite 1. 0.95 is 95 hundredths is less than 1. 994 thousandths is less than 1. How did you do? Hopefully you did well. All right. Next, we have writing fractions as decimals. So remember, what do you multiply to get that up to a 10? Remember, you're always looking for 10, 100, or 1,000. So 50 times 2 is going to give you 2 100ths is 2 100ths. 7/50 times 2 is 14 hundredths, which is 14 hundredths. 3 and 7/50, so I just multiply the fraction and carry over the whole number, 14 hundredths. So 3.14. 3 times 50, 3/50 is, if I'm going to turn that into a decimal, I have to take it up to 100, right? So in order to take it up to 100, I'm going to multiply by 2, 6 hundredths, and then I write it as a write it as a decimal, 0.06. 6 hundredths. 1/20th becomes 5 hundredths, and here is 5 hundredths. 3/20 becomes 15 hundredths, becomes 15 hundredths. 5 and 3/20, 5 and 15 hundredths becomes 5.15. 1/5 multiply top and bottom by 20, I get 20 hundredths is 0.20. 0, 20 hundredths. But you could just get rid of the 0. But if you want to represent it as hundreds, you can do it that way. All right. 2/5, 20, multiply top and bottom by 20 to get 40 hundredths, and you get 0.040, 40 hundredths. 6/5 is going to give you more than 1, so 120 over 100 is 1.2, or 1.2 hundredths, or 2 hundredths. Then 20 hundredths. 1/25 multiplied by 4 over 4, 4 hundredths is 4 hundredths. Then 7/25 is 28 hundredths, is 28 hundredths. 4 and 7/25, 4 and 28 hundredths, 4 and 28 hundredths. 1/4, it becomes 25 hundredths. Oh, I forgot to write 25 hundredths. 3/4, it becomes 7 hundredths. 75 hundredths, which it becomes 75 hundredths. All right. Last part of our fluency. Jasmine took 2/3 as much time to take a math test as Paula. So is that more than 1? Greater than 1? So if Paula is 1 whole, so 2/3 is less, right? So it takes 2/3 as much time to take a math test as Paula. If Paula took 2 hours to take a test, how long did it take Jasmine to take the test? So step 1, what? So you have to scale here. You have to understand scaling, right? And then you have to be able to turn that into minutes. All right. Can you do it? So if Jasmine is only 2/3, so if you drew this as a tape diagram and you have Paula is 1 whole, right? So and that equals 2 hours. Then we have Jasmine, and she takes 2/3, right? So how much is this time? So what are you going to do? What are you going to do first? What is step 1? How about 2/3 of 2 hours, right? Which is going to give us 4/3, which is equal to 1 1/3 hour, right? Or let's just leave it right here, because now we need to take 4/3, and now we need to change it into minutes. How many minutes are in an hour? 60 minutes. So 240 over 3 is equal to 80 minutes. Is that the answer? No. The answer is Jasmine finished the test in 80 minutes. That's the answer. All right, that'll do it for fluency. Meet me back for concept development. So, scaling with decimals.